Fresh air is good. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When planning the sequence of these classes, 7 classes on Lord Nityananda, I was thinking this should be the first one. But then I decided, no, we'll cover the flow of the overview of his life and activities, circle back around and discuss Nityananda Tattva. Nityananda Tattva means the truths about Lord Nityananda. There's a ring back. Can you fix the ring back? And as I promised, I remembered, this is that image that I wanted to show all of you. This is this hands up in the air kind of thing. For a long time, I kind of guessed it was something that came from Chaupati. Radhanath Maharaj, and you say Hare Krishna mantra and everyone raises their arms, and when he raises his arms, everyone raises their arms. That's what I thought was going on with this. But I started doing it myself because, this, as I mentioned already, in this month of December, just passed, 4 japa retreats, each one having this image as a very important image in the whole presentation. So seeing it again, and I developed a fondness for this image of someone calling Krishna's name and Krishna's hearing. They're calling, especially if they're present with the activity of calling Krishna's name, and he responds, or in fact, not responds. He's there, hearing and responding simultaneously. So I made a promise I would show this image, so there it is. Now, the tattva of Lord Nityananda is primarily discussed in Adi Leela chapter 5. In Adi Leela chapter 5, a little bit about the structure of Adi Leela, about Chaitanya Charitamrita. First, Sri Balaram in Krishna Loka is the original Sankarshan. We'll hear some of these details. Or Sankarshan meaning the attracting deity. This is Prabhupada's language. Lord Baladev in Krishna Loka is Nityananda Prabhu, therefore Nityananda is the original Sankarshan. So that's an introduction to the topic. The first 15 verses in chapter 15 are addressing from Swarup Damodar's writings. So a little background. And this chapter 5 ends with a description of how Swarup Damodar, how Krishnadas Kaviraj got Swarup Damodar's association. And it goes like this. by the mercy of Nityananda, Nityananda ordered in a dream, he ordered Krishnadas Kaviraj to go to Vrindavan. It was a merciful gesture in relation to what you'll hear at the end of this discussion. So he, Krishnadas Kaviraj, instantly hearing this order, it was a dream. So in the middle of the night, he got up and left. Didn't say Haribol to anybody. He just got up and left and headed for Vrindavan. And there he stayed for the rest of his life, and he lived a very long life. And when he got to Vrindavan, by the mercy of Nityananda, when he got to Vrindavan, he had the very wonderful, special association of Raghunath Das Goswami. And by the association of Raghunath Das Goswami, he got the association of Swarup Damodar. By the association of Swarup Damodar, he got the whole structure of Lord Chaitanya's life, because he didn't have Lord Chaitanya's association. But Raghunath Das had Lord Chaitanya's association. And not only he had Lord Chaitanya's association, but he had Swarup Damodar explaining everything. Here's how it went. Raghunath Das Goswami, we heard this yesterday. We're going to hear it again tomorrow. Raghunath Das Goswami got Lord Chaitanya's association by the mercy of Nityananda. One more time. And by the mercy of Nityananda, he got free from his father's clutches and went to Puri. And when he reached Puri, Lord Chaitanya was expecting him. There's some history behind how that happened. And he then received him very nicely. And because there were a number of Raghunaths present in Puri at the time, Raghunath Das, was then assigned to be under the care of Swarup Damodar. So he was called the Raghu of Swarup. Right? And who is Swarup Damodar? You gave us the answer yesterday. Vishaka. And so Vishaka, in the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, Lalita, he knew everything. These two, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, were with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was in outer space. He was in beyond any other personality's experience, and they understood it, and they knew how to recite verses, and they understood everything about what he did and what was going on with him. The transcendental, super transcendental emotion. And Swarup Damodar explained everything to Raghunath Das. So Raghunath Das was filled up to here in understanding the tattva of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And not only that, Swarup Damodar kept a diary. And Swarup Damodar gave his diary to Raghunath Das. And guess who got the diary of Swarup Damodar? Krishnadas Kaviraj. So we're going to hear at the end how the sequence of all that happened. And then, so now the structure of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 1, there's the first 11 verses are directly extracted from Swarup Damodar's diary. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj says, he goes through those first 11 verses and explains them. That's the structure. And then when we get to chapter 5, which is what we're discussing, the tattva of Lord Nityananda, it's 2 verses explained extensively makes chapter 5. 2 of the 11. He was very organized, very, and compliments of Swarup Damodar, compliments of Lord Nityananda, and Raghunath Das Goswami. So many of you know, it's a nice detail. When Raghunath Das came to know of the departure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was smashed. He couldn't maintain his life. And so he decided to give up his life. But his method was, because he had been given, you all know this story, but he had been given a Shalagram Shila directly by Lord Chaitanya, who worshipped for a year and massaged he didn't with the normal way of worshipping a Govardhan Shila. With his thumb, he was worshipping, and he made a thumbprint, like the deep impression in this Govardhan Shila, and pressed it to his eyes and cried. And so he gave a string of gunja berries and the Govardhan Shila, which Raghunath Das understood, he's giving me residence at Govardhan. With that gesture, with that gift. So when Lord Chaitanya left, he went to Govardhan. His plan was to go to Govardhan, the place that Lord Chaitanya gave him as residence, climb up Govardhan Hill, jump off Govardhan Hill, and give up his life. His mood was very melancholy, to say the least. And immediately when he met Rupa and Sanatan, they understood his mood. And they further said, wait a minute, we've been serving Lord Chaitanya in separation, and you've been with him for all these years, and you're going to give up your life? No way. You stay here, see this tree, under this tree every day, 3 to 4 hours every day. You recite everything that you learned from Swarup Damodar. Orders from Rupa Goswami. Don't give up your life, do this. And who was in the audience? Krishnadas Kaviraj. Every day for 3 to 4 hours, hearing from Raghunath Das Goswami, and he's a super ecstatic devotee. He's a Rasika Shuddha Bhakta, Mahabhagavata. And he heard every day for 3 to 4 hours. Shoo. By the mercy of Swarup Damodar. And then everyone said, oh, you have to write all that because you're a kavi, you're a poet, you're a good writer. From the little boy, you were like that. So now, please write everything that you heard from Raghunath Das Goswami for 3 to 4 hours every day for a number of years. And he was unqualified. He felt unqualified. So he went to this devotee, that devotee, the other devotee for their blessings to do this. You know the story. He went to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He said, yes, you have my blessings on one condition. Don't mention my name. Madan Mohan Garland circled him. So, blessings. And then he lived such a long age, and he completed the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. Compliments of, you can say, Lord Nityananda. Just by his taking, as we discussed yesterday, we'll hear it again today, by his taking the position of when you're in the presence of someone who defiles Lord Nityananda, you speak something. Or your other option is get up and you leave the place. That's another option. But you can't just smile and remain silent. You have to respond. So because he responded, Lord Nityananda appeared in his dream, and we heard this yesterday. We're going to hear it again. So this is the verse. This is verse number 7, I think, out of the first 11, where chapter 5 is expanding this nice verse. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshana, Sheshanag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. Technical. So we already heard in the first class, some images and some of these verses. So before we go there, we're going to repeat some of that. But I want to read, just because this is our founder Acharya's words, summarizing the introduction to this chapter. In Krishna Loka is a transcendental place known as Svetadweep or Vrindavan. Below Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, there are the Vaikuntha planets. On each Vaikuntha planet, a four-handed Narayana, expanded from the first quadruple manifestation, is present. The personality of Godhead known as Sri Balaram in Krishna Loka is the original Sankarshana, attracting deity. And from this original Sankarshana expands another Sankarshana called Maha Sankarshana, who resides in one of the Vaikuntha planets. By his internal potency, Maha Sankarshana maintains the transcendental existence of all the planets in the spiritual sky, where all the living entities are eternally liberated souls. The influence of the material energy is conspicuous there by its absence. On those planets, the second quadruple manifestation is present. That's one paragraph. Digest that one. Next, outside the Vaikuntha planets is the impersonal manifestation of Sri Krishna, which is known as Brahmaloka. On the other side of Brahmaloka is the spiritual Karana Samudra, or causal ocean, on the other side of the impersonal manifestation. The material energy exists on the other side of the causal ocean. It's a big ocean. Without touching it. In the causal ocean is Mahavishnu. So of these five that were expanded, Mahavishnu. The original Purusha, expansion from Sankarshana. Notice the connection. Mahavishnu places his glance over the material energy, and by a reflection of his transcendental body, he amalgamates himself within the material elements. Of course, it's going to be explained in the course of the chapter, in case you don't understand what does that mean. Paragraph. As the source of the material elements, the material energy is known as pradhan. And as the source of the manifestations of the material energy, it, or pradhan, is known as maya. But material nature is inert, in that she has no independent power to do anything. She is empowered to make the cosmic manifestation by the glance of Mahavishnu. Therefore, the material energy is not the original cause of the material manifestation. Rather, the transcendental glance of Mahavishnu over the material nature produces that cosmic manifestation. We're going to get back to Balaram and Nityananda in a moment. Next paragraph. Mahavishnu again enters every universe as the reservoir of all living entities. Garbhodakshay Vishnu. From Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the supersoul of every living entity. Now remember, this is explaining that first verse, number 7 out of the 11, and how Nityananda expands all these features, but they're expansions from Nityananda. Garbhodakshay Vishnu also has his own Vaikuntha planet in every universe, where he lives as the supersoul, or supreme controller of the universe. Garbhodakshayi Vishnu reclines in the midst of the watery portion of the universe and generates the first living creature of the universe, Brahma. The imaginary universal form is a partial manifestation of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Paragraph. On the Vaikuntha planet, in every universe, is an ocean of milk. And within that ocean is an island called Svetadweep. Notice the same name as in Vrindavan in the spiritual world, in Krishna Loka. Svetadweep, same name. One of the abodes of Krishna and the other in the ocean of milk in every universe. The Svetadweep in the abode of Krishna is identical with Vrindavan Dham, which is the place where Krishna appears himself to display his loving pastimes. In the Svetadweep within every universe is a Shesha form of Godhead, who serves Vishnu by assuming the form of his umbrella, slippers, couch, pillows, garments, residence, sacred thread, throne, and so on. Paragraph. Lord Baladev in Krishna Loka is Nityananda Prabhu. Therefore, Nityananda Prabhu is the original Sankarshan, and Maha Sankarshana and his expansions as the Purushas in the universes are plenary expansions of Nityananda Prabhu. And then there's the portion of the portion, and that's Shesha. So that's in case your head is spinning, that's a little outline of the Tattva of Lord Nityananda. So I thought maybe better to do this class number 4 than class number 1, because everyone would go home like wants to hear from this guy. So let's go on, and the plan. Let's see how it works. But the plan is to read the verses a little bit, because we touched on those verses the very first class to introduce chapter 5 of Adi Lila and to introduce Lord Nityananda, following in the footsteps of Krishna Das Kaviraj, who's following in the footsteps of Swarup Damodar, who's following in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who illumined him and enlightened him into all these very elevated teachings. Remember, Krishna Das Kaviraj, he wasn't in Puri. He wasn't with Chaitanya. We weren't in Puri with Lord Chaitanya either. But he had the Kadachas of Swarup Damodar, and he had the student or disciple, Shishya, of Swarup Damodar in the form of Raghunath Das Goswami. And, you can't get any better than that. Read some of the writings. Raghunath Das Goswami wasn't like Jiva Goswami, a prolific, big writer. He very few things did he write, but what he did write was amazing. Amazing. From the platform of complete, perfect realization, because he was a Mahabhagavata, guided by the intelligence of Swarup Damodar, etc. So we're very. How did we get here? We're, in a living room in Alachua, hearing this very elevated subject matter. Somehow or another. That's a good answer. Somehow or another. Prabhupada's mercy expanded in so many different forms. And how dedicated was Srila Prabhupada to make this available to us and anybody and everybody. And how enthusiastic he was to receive book distribution reports and translations and of his works, and people receiving this news, because without this news, what's people interested in? Don't go there. But if it's not the transcendental news, then it's this other, and it's just rubbish. But so if instead of filling our brain with rubbish, filling our brain with something that's going to purify the brain or purify the heart, purify consciousness, and how dedicated was our founder Acharya to make this available to, in his own language, to persons who are living like hogs and dogs and cats. In his language, Tamagun, Rajagun, to the max. To the max. And things that Prabhupada did, we've all heard. Things that people were exposed to, we were exposed to, the culture which we grew up in, we were exposed to, is not nice. And he knew it. His word was nasty. There's this very nice expression. In an intimate moment, Prabhupada shared, there's this record at least, that he shared with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Krishna asked him, in Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna asked him to go to the material world. Prabhupada objected, I don't want to go there. That place is nasty. And Krishna gave his promise, I'll protect you, don't worry. You go there, you take this message, and when you're done, you can come back. Okay. So he knew. And sure enough, nasty. And here we are. At least the opportunity is being extended through sound and these recorded sounds to become free from rajas and tamas and more towards sattva and shuddha sattva. Wow. What did we do to be born in America? That's entitlement. Some of you weren't born in America, so you're not entitled. This recipient of the mercy of a most merciful person who is distributing the mercy of Mahavadanyaya, and assisting him is Lord Nityananda. So let's go a little bit to these introductory verses, starting with text number 1 through 15. Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. And now in 5 verses, I shall describe the glory of Nityananda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balaram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. And then comes verse 7 from Adi Leela, chapter 1. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshana, Sheshanag, and the Vishnus, who lie on the Karna ocean, Garbha ocean, and ocean of milk, are his plenary portions, and the portion of his plenary portions. Short purport. Sri Sarup Damodar has recorded this verse in his diary to offer his respectful obeisances to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. This verse also appears as the seventh of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I mean, just some. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is a big work. What speaking of, then the commentary on it. So there's a structure. And he, Sarup Damodar, is just a follower of Lord Chaitanya. And what he heard and experienced in association with Lord Chaitanya became Chaitanya Charitamrita, with the blessings of Madan Mohan and all the Vaishnavas and the gift of his capacity for writing. Put it all together and Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. The first 14 verses. So this is verse number 7. Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshana. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. We heard that already. He himself, Balaram, in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. Makes 5. He executes the order of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. And there's a nice purport, a little longer. According to expert opinion, Lord Balaram, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarshana. Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms, same 5 forms. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balaram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, plural, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta, or unlimited, because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Sri Balaram is the servitor Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge, Sat and Chit. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balaram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. So this is class number 4. The topic is understanding, for even a foolish person, to understand the tattva of Lord Nityananda, the truths about Lord Nityananda. Text 11. In all these forms, in all the forms, he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balaram is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundar. I have explained the 7th verse in 4 subsequent verses. By these verses, all the world can know the truth about Lord Nityananda. And, right in the text is Nityananda Tattva. Text 13. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshan in the midst of the Chaturvyuha, consisting of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. Now that's the little short purport. This is a verse from Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th verse of the first 14 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Text 14 out of 15. Beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Paravyoma, the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, the Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky, possesses all transcendental attributes, such as the 6 opulences, in a very lengthy purport. That Vaikuntha region is all-pervading, infinite, and supreme. It is the residence of Lord Krishna and his incarnation. So this includes Krishna Loka and Vaikuntha Loka and the Brahmajyoti and all those other nice things that were described earlier. So a little summary. Now, a very important part of understanding Nityananda Tattva is described by Krishnadas Kaviraj at the conclusion of Adi Lila chapter 5. And I'll summarize, and then the writing is very nice. The summary is, Krishnadas Kaviraj, wants his reader to understand, yes, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. But, do not minimize the position of Lord Nityananda. And those that minimize or offend in that way, slighting the position of Lord Nityananda, they're ruined. And so he summarizes how his brother and the Pujari, Gunarava Mishra, were ruined because of that error. As we said yesterday evening, don't mess with Lord Nityananda. They messed and they fell. It doesn't say to where they fell, but it just says their stature was taken from them. Whatever asset they had was taken from them, the spiritual asset. So I want to read. So I'll summarize. The painting is showing Krishnadas Kaviraj with his folded palms like this, having a dream. And then in the dream, Lord Nityananda appeared in his dream and appreciated how strong he was and how correct he was in chastising his brother and Gurnarnava Mishra for offending Miniketan. And Miniketan was a Navadutta, like Lord Nityananda. He was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda, and he was a madman, madman. He didn't behave in conventional ways. And so Nityananda Ram came into the home of Krishnadas Kaviraj's brother, and there was a festival going on. Everybody in the room, as soon as Miniketan Ram came, they offered their respects to an elevated sadhu, except for one person, the pujari, or the brahmana. And the brahmana, Gurnarnava Mishra, he was engaged in deity worship, and maybe, incorrectly actually, you are the second Romaharshan Sutta. You all know the story, Romaharshan Sutta. But I'll say it anyways because it's nice to hear it again. Romaharshan Sutta was an intimate disciple of Vedavyas. And when Vedavyas did what he did, he took the one Veda and divided it into 4 Vedas, and he assigned certain of his qualified disciples to be in charge of maintaining this of the 4, and then that one of the 4, and then he compiled the Puranas and gave Romaharshan Sutta the responsibility to maintain the Puranas. Nice. He was an exalted person, thus entrusted by Vyasadeva. But sometimes it happens. Someone that's entrusted with some responsible service because they're qualified to carry out that responsible service, sometimes it happens that person becomes a little proud. And Balaram was on tour, and he came into the presence of Romaharshan Sutta, who was reciting one of the Puranas, and everybody in the assembly paid their obeisances to respect Balaram, except one person, Romaharshan Sutta. Now, one could recite this etiquette. When you're reciting, as when you're doing deity worship, you begin, you don't interrupt. There's an exception. When in the presence of that person, a great personality comes, you stop. And you offer your respects to that great personality. This is an etiquette that supersedes the other etiquette. So Gurnarnava Mishra continued with his deity worship. And it wasn't just disrespect in that way. In his mind, he was thinking, this fellow's crazy. Miniketan Ram, and he's a madman. I'm worshiping the deity. I don't respect madmen. I'm worshiping the deity. So he continued. And when it was over, and some question was raised to Gurnarnava Mishra, how come you didn't respect? Krishnadas Kaviraj's brother took the side of the pujari of Gurnarnava Mishra. No, he did the right thing. He was doing deity worship, and who is this fellow anyways? So they started speaking not only their behavior, but also their speech, speaking deprecatory words of someone who's genuinely, then it came our question yesterday, how do you tell who is just a mad person and who is a genuine person when they're, not conducting themselves in normal ways? How do you discern all of that? That was a nice question. But we'll leave that for yesterday evening. And for this evening, Look here comes some mats for you all to sit on. Yeah, that's even better. Those of you that are in the front, come up for a little bit further. Those of you behind them, you go a little bit further. Those of you out in the peanut gallery, you come a little closer. You're a very conscientious host. Thank you. You can see around the corner, even when you're over there. Okay. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj, two things, their behavior and their speech. He chastised them strongly. And you, by this disrespect of Mini Ketan Ram, you surely will fall. It doesn't say to where they fell or what had happened in their fall or any of that. It just says then they fell. And that night, Lord Nityananda came to him in a dream and respected him, honored him for what he had done, and told him at once, go to Vrindavan. You know, it wasn't a big, long description of what to do once he got to Vrindavan, but Rupa and Sanatan were there, and they took care of him because he's very dear to Lord Nityananda. And the rest is a description of the glories of Lord Nityananda or Nityananda Tattva. So I'm going to go to hopefully, verse 156 and read. It's very nice. If I can just find the page. There's the page. Okay. So where it starts, 155, is a verse from Sri Brahma Samhita. Let's say the verse together. Ramadi Murta Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarodu Vaneshu Kinto Krishnak Svayam Samabhavak Paramak Pumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who, by his various plenary portions, appears in the world in different forms and incarnations, such as Lord Rama, but who personally appears in a supreme original form as Lord Krishna. So now, starting 156. Lord Chaitanya is the same Lord Krishna and Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram. Lord Nityananda fulfills all of Lord Chaitanya's desires. The ocean of Lord Nityananda's glories is infinite and unfathomable. Only by his mercy can I touch even a drop of it. Please listen to another glory of his mercy. He made a fallen living entity climb to the highest limit, he's speaking of himself. To disclose it is not proper, for it should be kept as confidential as the Vedas, yet I shall speak it to make his mercy known to all. Oh, Lord Nityananda, I write of your mercy out of great exaltation. Please forgive me for my offenses. Lord Nityananda Prabhu had a servant named Sri Miniketana Ramdas, who was a reservoir of love. In my house, there was a Sankirtan day and night, and therefore he visited there, having been invited. Absorbed in emotional love, he sat in my courtyard, and all the Vaishnavas bowed down at his feet. In a joyful mood of love of God, He sometimes climbed upon the shoulder of someone offering obeisances. And sometimes he struck others with his flute or mildly slapped them. When someone saw the eyes of Nityananda Ram Das, tears would automatically flow from his own eyes, for a constant shower of tears flowed from the eyes of Nityananda Ram Das. Sometimes there were eruptions of ecstasy like kadamba flowers on some parts of his body, and sometimes one limb would be stunned while another would be trembling. Whenever he shouted aloud the name of Nityananda, the people around him were filled with great wonder and astonishment. One respectable Brahmana named Gurnarva Mishra was serving the deity. When Nityananda was seated in the yard, this Brahman did not offer him respect. Seeing this, Sri Ram Das became angry and spoke. Here I find the second Ramaharshan Sutta, who did not stand to show honor when he saw Lord Balaram. After saying this, he danced and sang to his heart's content. But the Brahman did not become angry, for he was then serving Lord Krishna. At the end of the festival, Nityananda Ram Das went away, offering his blessings to everyone. At that time, he had some controversy with my brother. My brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but only a dim glimmer of faith in Lord Nityananda. Knowing this, now it wasn't about himself, it was about Lord Nityananda. Sri Ram Das felt unhappy in his mind. I then rebuked my brother. These two brothers, I told him, are like one body. They are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. If you have faith in one but disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. It would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing in one and slighting the other. Thus, Sri Ram Das broke his flute in anger and went away. And at that time, my brother fell down. No purport. I have thus described the power of the servants of Lord Nityananda. Now I shall describe another characteristic of his potencies. That night, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream because of my good quality of chastising my brother. In the village of Janmadapura, which is near Naihati, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream. I fell at his feet, offering my obeisances, and he then placed his own lotus feet on my head. Arise, get up, he told me again and again. Upon rising, I was greatly astonished to see his beauty. So here's a description of his form. He had a glossy blackish complexion, and his tall, strong, heroic stature made him seem like Cupid himself. He had beautifully formed hands, arms, and legs, and eyes like lotus flowers. He wore a silk cloth with a silk turban on his head. He wore golden earrings on his ears and golden armlets and bangles. He wore tinkling anklets on his feet and a garland of flowers around his neck. His body was anointed with sandalwood pulp, and he was nicely decorated with tilak. His movements surpassed those of a maddened elephant. His face was more beautiful than millions upon millions of moons. Sound familiar? And his teeth were like pomegranate seeds because of his chewing betel. His body moved to and fro, right and left, for he was absorbed in ecstasy. He chanted, Krishna, Krishna, in a deep voice. His red stick moving in his hand. He seemed like a maddened lion. All around the four sides of his feet were bumblebees. His devotees, dressed like cowherd boys, surrounded his feet like so many bees, and also chanted, Krishna, Krishna, absorbed in ecstatic love. Some of them played horns and flutes, and others danced and sang. Some of them offered betel nuts, and others waved chamara fans about him. Thus I saw such opulence in Lord Nityananda Sarup. His wonderful form, qualities, and pastimes are all transcendental. I was overwhelmed with transcendental ecstasy, not knowing anything else. Then Lord Nityananda smiled and spoke to me as follows. My dear Krishnadas, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan, for there you will attain all things. After saying this, he directed me toward Vrindavan by waving his hand. That's what's in the painting. He then disappeared with his associates. I fainted and fell to the ground. My dream broke, and when I regained consciousness, I saw that morning had come. I thought about what I had seen and heard and concluded that the Lord had ordered me to proceed to Vrindavan at once. That very second, I started for Vrindavan, and by his mercy, I reached there with great happiness. All glory to that Lord Nityananda Balaram, by whose mercy I have attained shelter in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan. All glory to the merciful Lord Nityananda, by whose mercy I have attained shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana. By his mercy I have attained the shelter of great personality Raghunath Das Goswami, and by his mercy I have found the refuge of Sri Sarup Damodar. By the mercy of Sanatana Goswami, I have learned the final conclusions of devotional service, and by the grace of Sri Rupa, I have tasted the highest nectar of devotional service. All glory to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, by whose mercy I have attained Sri Radha Govinda. I am more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, and even lower than worm and stool. Anyone who hears my name loses the results of his pious activities. Anyone who utters my name becomes sinful. Who in this world but Nityananda could show his mercy to such an abominable person as me? Because he is intoxicated by ecstatic love and is an incarnation of mercy, he does not distinguish between the good and the bad. He delivers all those who fall down before him. Therefore, he has delivered such a sinful and fallen person as me. Although I am sinful and I am most fallen, he has conferred upon me the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami. I am not fit to speak all these confidential words about my visiting Lord Madan Gopal, and Lord Govinda. Lord Madan Gopal, the chief deity of Vrindavan, is the enjoyer of the rasa dance and is directly the son of the king of Vraja. He enjoys rasa dance with Srimati Radharani, Sri Lalita, and others. He manifests himself as the Cupid of Cupids, etc. So on the one hand and on the other hand, if one wants the mercy of Krishna, one wants to enter into the rasa dance of Radha and Krishna, get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And on the other hand, don't mess with Lord Nityananda. Don't minimize his position. Don't fail to properly have regard for him. And if you have difficulty, we read this nice discussion yesterday where Lord Chaitanya was describing to a Brahmana the glories of Lord Nityananda, and how to not mistake his behaving other than in the way that one expects an elevated person to behave. It's quite okay. He has the credential to behave like that. And don't misunderstand. And don't imitate. So that's our topic for Nityananda Tattva. Now, some of these points we covered before. That's okay. You hear them again and hear them again and hear them again and hear them again. That's clear understanding is sometimes necessary. Repetition is sometimes necessary for clear understanding. So let us see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. On one of the very first slides, it defined Sankarshan as attracting deity.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Krishna means all attractive. What is this attracting deity?
I'm not a Sanskritist. And our Sanskritist doesn't seem to be here today. But so the differentiation from someone who's not a Sanskritist, my understanding is this: all attractive is one, that's Krishna, and Krishna expands with someone that has some portion of, or a semblance of his attractiveness, and his attractiveness specifically is in two realms, the spiritual and the material realm. And there are functions that expansion Sankarshan does that assists people ultimately, like the Vedas assist people in becoming attached to the source of everything, and that's Krishna. So he assists. It's the Guru Tattva principle. He's Sankarshana is one who's assisting people to become attracted to the source, the supreme source, and that way, the attractive deity. But a replica of, except form is different and function is different. That's an amateur explanation of what does it mean. Now, probably a Sanskritist could do a much better job. I have a couple of go-to people, Sanskrit scholarly people, and I'll go to those go-to people and see what they have to say. And it depends. It's a weekend, and they get really busy on weekends, like some of the rest of us. But if they respond, Jagatananda.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. A couple of things. First is a sharing. I was appreciating the process of this oral reception combined with the association of the devotees. Like you mentioned, the two principal biographers of Lord Chaitanya, Vrindavan Das Thakur and even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, they didn't have personal association of Mahaprabhu. And Vrindavan Das was even the next generation, but just having the association of Lord Nityananda and just appreciating the process of oral reception and how even one who doesn't have that close association, they were so empowered by Lord Nityananda and the associates that they could become the principal biographers. So similarly, of course, we are not that qualified, but sometimes we wonder how can we serve Lord Nityananda, or how can we serve Prabhupada?
Say it slower. We sometimes wonder
how we can serve Lord Nityananda or how we can serve Prabhupada. But you answered yesterday that by serving those that are serving them.
Yeah.
We serve them. So we have the same opportunity, to serve these great souls. That's the first comment. And the second one, the Miniketan Ramdas pastime, it's quite, there are subtleties I felt there. Because, Miniketan Ramdas, he is the disciple of Lord Nityananda, or the associate of Lord Nityananda. And he is so absorbed in Lord Nityananda's consciousness that when they didn't offer him respect, he didn't take it that they were not offering him respect, but he saw that they were slighting Lord Nityananda. So externally it seems that he's taking it as an offense that they are not respecting him, but actually he's thinking that they're not respecting Lord Nityananda. So that subtlety I was, catching. So it might externally seem that he's taking it as a personal offense, but it doesn't seem like that when we, hear it carefully. So those two things. Thank you.
A couple responses.
Yeah.
One of the responses is, in addition to the potency or the power of hearing, which we're also hearing, Vrindavan Das Thakur is understood to be an incarnation of Vyas, or he was the Vyas of Gaur Leela, although generations or some duration of time later. So qualified by hearing, but also qualified by his identity, his spiritual identity. Now, exactly what that means, because sometimes people ask, what exactly does that mean that he was, what exactly does it mean? Does it mean, was he empowered as Vyasadeva? Was Shaktivesh avatar empowered? Or was he literally the same soul in that other body called Vrindavan Das Thakur? Which does it mean? I don't have the answer to that question. Exactly. Certainly the Shakti, and whether it was the same soul now in another body, in Vrindavan Das Thakur body, and that's another question. I don't have the answer to that question. But the Shakti, yes. And then, so he's endowed with that Shakti and hearing. And the lifestyle that he lived from that position of, where he was born. The biography of Vrindavan Das Thakur is very interesting. His beginning was very humble. And the place where he was born is like remote, and it wasn't, anyway. Then the second comment or observation or interesting note was the offense that Miniketan Ram Das felt was not for himself, but for Lord Nityananda. Now, that to me, that observation begs a couple of questions. For example, when Nityananda, Miniketan Ram Das was doing weird stuff, people paying obeisances, and he's getting on their shoulders and and slapping them and hitting them with his flute. And what was that? What was that? Was it, was it the avadutedness of of Lord Nityananda? Or it wasn't an imitation? What was it? Was it? So what was it? And further, what was his understanding of, as he was doing what he was doing, I'm the representative of I'm carrying the blessings of Lord Nityananda as he's doing what he's doing, or experiencing what he's experiencing, and receiving the respect of others and not receiving the respect of others. And what was his consciousness? One who is in such an exalted position. You know, a Mahabhagavata Vaishnava, what's their consciousness? On the one hand, and on the other hand, completely humble, because that's the characteristic of an exalted Vaishnava, and yet not an expectation of honorifics, but accepting honorifics. And it doesn't stick, it goes to the person who they're representing. It takes very, very special consciousness to not have anything stick. You know, praise, and it just goes right through the person who's being praised and goes to the source. Yet, on the other hand, like here's a couple of examples. There's two examples. One example is in Los Angeles. A reporter, you know, after Prabhupada's reception at the airport, and they're at the temple, and the little gathering of reporters, and one reporter asked Prabhupada, I saw that when they picked you up at the airport, they picked you up on this big limousine. And I thought, you know, sannyas, you're the renounced order of life, and you live a simple life. So how come they brought this big limousine? And Prabhupada didn't explain. He just, you know, the man was a challenging question, so he gave a challenging answer. He said it wasn't good enough. It should have been a gold car. And then explained, because the disciple, and so the spiritual master accepts the opulence, although it has no affinity for opulence. Then another similar, you know, challenging reporter asked Prabhupada, you know, I've read that, you know, those who are in the renounced order like you, they don't travel in conveyances. You know, they walk from one place to the other place, but you came in this 747. So could you explain? And Prabhupada's answer, if I came by bullock cart, you're going so quickly to hell that I would never be able to catch you. So I came by 747. You know, when inspired Prabhupada to say something like Super Soul, right? So, you know, both praise and the opposite doesn't stick. So then entirely, what's the consciousness of somebody that's able to move so fluidly between this extreme and that extreme? And, you know, and enter into states of ecstasy where he couldn't speak even. Choked up and couldn't speak. More than once. You know, so what's that? So that's the consciousness that he was in, and then moving in the. So what's the consciousness of Meena Ketan and Ramdas, or someone who is representing in such an exalted way such a person? What's his understanding of his position? Is he conscious of his position? What's he thinking? What's the subjective experience of such a person? Otherworldly, not by any normal contemplation. of behavior or speech or consciousness or anything otherworldly. And then, that's basically what Lord Chaitanya said to the Brahmana. They're not governed by norms. So don't make the mistake of judging the person. They're not governed by norms when they're in fact on another platform. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Online. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. How one can overcome inferiority complex?
Oh. Associating with someone who's genuinely humble. Not by associating with somebody has inflated superiority complex, but associating with someone that has genuine consciousness, genuine humility, genuine characteristics. And, same as we discussed yesterday, by service, association in service of such persons. Find such persons. There are such persons. Associate with them. And then, their response is, yeah, but I have this thing. I don't feel I'm qualified because I have this inferiority complex. So get over, by association, you can go beyond your material strengths and material weaknesses by association. In time. Just like here in Alachua, there's a couple of children that are unlimitedly social. And then there's some others that are very shy. So they're different personality types, that's fine. That unlimitedly, the parents that have the unlimitedly social child, they can't just put him in a box and, on a leash or something and control them. But, by good example and, by various ways of training a young bodied person, how to be, what are good boundaries for good conduct. And conversely, someone that's a little person that's really shy, or an adult that's really shy, give them opportunities that they can be not just in the limelight, but, speak on behalf of. So purification through service and association. Something else. Okay.
Can I ask?
Yeah?
So I'm trying to understand what is avaduta? What is is there a definition or the origin?
The simple one, there's norms of speech and behavior, and someone that behaves or speaks in a ways that's not within the boundaries of those norms.
So is bewildering activities and...
Well, yeah. I mean, someone's paying obeisances, and you get on the shoulders of that person that's paying obeisances. That's an example.
So Lord Nityananda is Lord Balaram, and I can see in activities of Lord Balaram and Nityananda, but not Lakshman. So is that the same personality can be Avaduta and not?
That's it. So that's a nice question. Lakshmana, the whole the primary impact or a message of Ramayana is Dharma. And so Lakshmana, didn't go outside of that. He was displaying Dharma, but from the mode of the ideal servant. As Hanuman was the ideal servant, Lakshmana was an ideal servant. Always, 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 always. And in certain circumstances, he was, heading in the direction of something that was inappropriate and Lord Chaitanya corrected him. Or excuse me, Lord Ramachandra corrected him. I mean, a classic example is 11 years into the 14 years in the forest, and there they are up on a mountaintop, and Lakshmana is serving Sita and Ram, and he makes some comment, about Bharata. Poor Bharata. We're here together, enjoying each other's company, and Bharata's back in Ayodhya, alone, crying, wishing that you would come, and in this distressed situation, poor Bharata. And then he started speaking about Kaikeyi, and Lord Chaitanya stopped him. Excuse me, Lord Ramachandra stopped him. So you can appreciate Bharata all you like, but don't speak words about Kaikeyi. So that's a boundary. Not avaduta like, a human like, but so more along the lines of Dharma and abiding by Dharma in everything. Maryada Purushottama, etc. That's a main theme imparted through Ramayana. Therefore, very good for people in general to hear and to adore the message of Ramayana. And hearing it again helps people be dharmic. Okay. Yeah, Ragamika.
When you said Lord Ram told him not to speak,
Don't say anything about Kaikeyi.
in other words, don't criticize her.
Don't criticize. Because that was what he was feeling. Her son is in this miserable condition because of her. She's the perpetrator and he's the victim. Don't speak about Kaikeyi. Speak anything you like about Bharata, that's okay. Very practical, instructive. Okay, we'll end. Srila Prabhupada.